spiritual forces from another dimension. Now, again, whether you believe this or not, folks, the elite believe it. Explain the sacred architecture.
Well, that's right. And within Masonry, if you look at the highest degrees of Masonry, they have that Judaic aspect that you were talking about, Knights of the Kadosh, Knights of the, the secret, all of these weird terminologies they've got right there. People can see this in the design of the cities. They can, I have a huge collection of Masonic literature, so we're not making anything up. This is from the horse's mouth. You only need to go to the Albert Mackey's and to the actual Masonic encyclopedias. This is not hard to do, even though it takes a lot of time. But if people spend the time, see the peruse our works, and we put this stuff on DVD, we put it in books, so it's there for people who don't have the time to do all this research to find out that America is not free. America has been colonized by the royals and the pharaohs of old, and America was ostensibly meant to be the last bastion against these oligarchs, these imperialists. What the people need to understand in America context particularly is that the imperialism is not gone away. The stuff that you're seeing now with the Amero coming in and the NAFTA and the CAFTA and the destruction of the American Constitution, this is a form of imperialism that has been insinuating.
And take Ireland. Ireland says no to the Lisbon Treaty, EU expansion, and then they say we don't care, we're going to bring it back up for another vote or implement it by fiat.
It's exactly the same the way that this is a mafioso situation. They'll never this kind of vampire never goes away until it's invited across the porch.
And going back to Egypt, we see it in the Old Testament and in the New. Over and over again, the Pharaoh would send out to the different slave groups he had and would kill a large portion of their children to keep the slaves at a lower population. You see the CPS today going out and kidnapping the children. It's all repeated, and they figured out thousands of years ago, thousands of years BC, how to control societies.
And I want to highlight something you just said a few minutes ago about the kind of dark forces that they're in league with. Those dark, again, if people don't understand it, that's just too bad. But the fact is, these people do not act in just a material sphere of influence. They are very much tied into something off-world. They're tied into other dark angelic forces, and they have to offer up sacrifices on this planet to those beings that they're in league with. And that is what, in my view, is pretty much a lot of the child abduction, the wars, the world wars that we've experienced, and just the general appetite, or not the appetite, but the general, every day, the toxic, influx of trauma across the TV, you see, and in our world in general. They need anxiety. They want to keep people, crippled and mutilated.
They are changing our neural pathways, showing us millions of simulated murders on TV, traumatizing us, where they now have university studies with the brain waves, where the area of the brain associated with pleasure, even in, quote, mainstream people, is lighting up when they see simulated murders, torture, death. They are turning us psychically into them.
I couldn't agree more, Alex. And, it's a situation of the normal, lower-level sadomasochism that people have, multiplied infinitely, this constant appeal to the limbic and mammalian centers of the brain, and it's a diet until you get so used to it that you don't even know what reason is anymore. You can't critically look at anything. You have an immediate defense mechanism as soon as it's like most of these people that today you have the internet riddled with internet assassins and debunkers, so-called, quote-unquote, and these are people that I describe like the deer in the headlights of the oncoming truth movement, who cannot stand that oncoming, juggernaut of truth.
And that's the next issue, is the enemy knows throughout history the human spirit rebels, goodness, the light, literally blots out their black sunshine, as they call it. And so they're doing everything they can with chemicals and microwaves and frequency pollution and radiation openly, and they write all this in their own documents that we've covered, and we cover in Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, to pollute our minds with the images, the toxins, all of it overlaid, the brainwashing through the television, both semantically and with the frequency of it, to try to blind us. And I've seen them go from arrogant to now being fearful. What are they so afraid of, Michael?
Well, they're always afraid of the human race because this is the serf, that they've been able to enslave, and of course the big fear is that that particular indentured servant slave might in fact wake up and throw away all of the junk that basically an age of awakening is what they're fearful of. Anyone who has control that's surreptitious, anyone who has a catalog of criminality like they have, these are super criminals, mega criminals, the genocides, the colonializations, the war on consciousness, all the the devastation that they've wreaked, of course these are criminals who don't want, to be discovered or the light to be shone on them. I've often said in my work that, hey, these guys say that they're worshippers of the sun. They claim to worship light. What would happen to them? Let's see the effects on them when we turn the light of truth and knowledge onto them. See how they like it. And this is the age that we're in with this kind of exposure.
They traffic in the souls of men. That's really what's valuable to them, is blinders, shutting people down, darkness, destruction. Look at the artwork the elite buys, buckets of maggots, images of dead babies. I mean, this is the most popular art across the board worldwide with the elites. 100 million pounds, sometimes $200 million, for one piece of blasphemous art. And they say we're buying this art to worship it, to adulate it, to give it the support it deserves. So what is their master plan? If they were to win, what is the world they're trying to set up? Let's get into the technological.
They're not trying to set it up. They've already been doing it. As I said before, this imperialist movement of this juggernaut, we're only seeing the latter days of something that has been a continuous, ongoing, incremental movement. Down through history, Americans tend to, not see that. They don't see, the whole movement of stuff.
Well, Michael, I see it. I'm talking about their end game. They're gearing up for something big.
Well, I believe it's basically, this ties into my work on 2012 and what's coming there. It's a sort of a 0 hour. This is the death of anything human. It doesn't mean the death of the planet. It doesn't mean, the end of nature. It doesn't even necessarily mean the end of the world. What it means is the end, and by God, anyone with their eyes open can see it's already taken place. It's a countdown to the extinction of what we would use when we say the word human. What we will have after 2012, 2015, you see, is a post-human world. They're racing headlong. You've dealt with it in Endgame.
And all their futurists, they are saying that they will have it by 2012 to 2020 if it's Kurzweil. You're right. They are incrementally now, but accelerating it, turning all the systems on.
Well, remember, what they're going to turn on happens 2012 and post. Before you can turn something on, you've got to end or bring to an end that which was before. So all the idioms, all the customs, the traditions, that all the people of the world, especially of the Western world, because the Western world is now, as you see, being turned into a third world country, and the third world is rising to be a first world. What we're heading towards right now is basically a post-human dystopia in which man is either so reduced to a robotic level that he runs even more headlong into the pharmaceutical thing to drug and to escape himself, or it will literally be some sort of Blade Runner dystopia in which you are literally, going to be vaccinated in a way that would changes your, being, or they've messed with our DNA.
And by the way, 20 years ago, they had live viruses, and now they're advertising them, that go in and create lobotomies in key areas of the brain. The viruses attack specific brain tissues to literally create mindless, gibbering automatons, and all of them say this is the plan, and DARPA says this is the plan. And as horrible as this sounds, they need to do this, and they want to exterminate at least 90% of us and have 10% suboid, subhuman slave creatures that serve them.
Well, I believe if you also bring in the whole the concept of the GMOs, you start to discover that the hoarding of the actual organic seeds that nature has produced, they're siloing this, they're archiving it.
Doomsday vaults.
What's that?
They've created doomsday vaults, the Rockefellers and the UN have.
Right.
Because
now,
they're going to infect everything, yeah.
Right, exactly. My vision is that they may, in fact, unleash some sort of worldwide plague on the plant life, on the flora,
Mm-hmm.
And then this creates us to either be interned underground or in some sort of silo or dome situation in which only the privileged are given the right kind of food, et cetera, and that person has to be totally conformist. They either wipe out everybody else.
No, let me stop you, Michael. This is the stated reverse engineered plan. They state, they have black op wars, they have drug wars to build up the police, and they stage terror to expand the criminal control grid. Then they have smaller controlled bioweapon releases to get us into compact cities. Then they start the real mass exterminations. That is the stated plan.
I agree with you there. I absolutely have come to the same conclusions in my own work, that something along these lines is, so people are hearing us now thinking we're talking sci-fi. This